welcome to another episode of TNFro is Reading. I'm your host, Felicia Baxter. I have actually spent most of my Saturday just kind of hanging out. I got up this morning, dropped some things off at the mailbox, got a smoothie from Smoothie King. It was actually pretty good. I just realized maybe I'm weird because I haven't had a whole bunch of coffee all day. The smoothie was coffee infused, blah, 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 with protein and mangoes, so it was actually all right. But I did my first live cast today, and I'm going to spend most of the time on this podcast just recapping that. Also, I will be doing a read from a very long book, but detailed, Ida, the Sport of Lions. I'll do a truncated read from that, as well as why being pro-black and a feminist does not make me a racist, as well as my case for the Living Single reboot, and just talking more about my speaking engagement at UF and planning for the Daytona 500. And I just want to thank you guys for joining me in this part 2 of the episode and the segment, and I'm hoping you enjoy it. Of the podcast simply as a means to be in the moment of the day, and I am working on my own personal walk with God. I've always been working on it. Maybe it's just that I don't believe that it is required that you have to be in a 4-hour church service beating up a shout. I think I've gotten a basis of a continuation of my walk through the Baptist church, other denominations, and then through non-denominationally. And I think how I choose to express my love for God and for the study of the Word it's personal to me, but I thought I would share this with my listening audience because it seems apropos for everything. At the beginning of my podcast, one of the books that I actually read partially was, I called it the first novel ever. And I'm starting to wonder if, I published it so long ago, The Tale of Genji, if that was actually the first novel ever. It was said to have been written over 1,000 years ago. But I'm thinking if the Song of Solomon is truly not the first novel in its strictest of sense. I'm going to read you the introduction of this book, and I'm reading actually from, I don't know when I wrote this. I was really deep into studying the Word right when I joined the Potter's House. I can't remember if this was one of my purchases. I think this was actually one of my purchases while I was at Mary Washington College, because in addition to all of my science courses, I actually took a bunch of religion courses, Old and New Testament, Judaism, Muslim, the study of this, the study of that, Western civilization, etc. And The New Oxford Annotated Bible with the Apocrypha, Expanded Edition, Revised Standard Version, was probably one of those purchases from school, and one of the books that I didn't sell back in addition to my science books. And Apocrypha basically is cliff notes of it's additional text, arguments, papers for the Old Testament. This is what I'm actually reading from. I thought the introduction interesting enough that I wanted to read it to you. The Song of Solomon. This book is a collection of about 25 lyric poems or fragments of poems of human love and courtship, such as would be sung appropriately at weddings. The poetry is graceful, sensuous, and replete with erotic imagery and allusions to the ancient myth of love of a god and a goddess, on which the fertility of nature was thought to depend. There is no clear literary structure, but the pronouns imply that the speakers are a bridegroom, bride, and chorus. Its unity is that of subject matter, style, and possibly of authorship. It is anonymous, since the addition of Solomon's name to the title has no support beyond the tradition that he was the composer of many proverbs and songs. The song has no overt religious content corresponding to that of the other books of the Bible, and can be so interpreted only by assuming that a mystical symbolism is involved in its highly figurative language. Its inclusion in the Old Testament is to be explained from the prophetic figure of the Lord as the husband of the people. In the Christian tradition, it has been interpreted as an allegory of love of Christ for his bride, which is the church, Revelations 2:21, 2 and 9, or as symbolizing the intimate experience of divine love in the individual soul. In its present written form, the song dates from about the 3rd century BC. Wow. But its material is much more ancient. Symbols and motifs derived from early mythology are still recognizable, but their original reference has been forgotten, and they have become part of a special language of human love and courtship. It should be noted that the translation is sometimes uncertain because many words employed in these poems are rare in biblical Hebrew. And what is most astounding, or I found that tripped me out, is when I read about the love and the lyrical nature, I said, well, could the authors have been some trained scholars, like either Greek scholars or even Roman scholars, because it has that feel of the old Roman plays and scholarship. And I chose it because of the way that you can interpret it. You don't have to necessarily be a Christian or even a Jewish person or of the Jewish faith to be able to appreciate the lyrical nature and the celebration of love that's contained within these 12 poems. And even though it's attributed to a man, which is such paternalistic, it is obvious that, and probably a woman may, just like the Tales of Genji, a woman may have actually written all of the poems themselves. And right from the beginning, I felt an affinity for the initial author's description of herself, because check this out, and you tell me if she's not describing a Nubian princess. The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. Oh, that you would kiss me with the kisses of your mouth, for your love is better than wine. Your anointing oils are fragrant, your name is oil poured out, therefore the maidens love you. Draw me after you, let us make haste. The king has brought me into his chambers. Actually, this chick was part of a harem. Okay. We will exalt and rejoice in you. We will extol your love more than wine. Rightly do they love you. I am very dark, but comely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not gaze at me because I am swarthy, because the sun has scorched me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. Tell me, you whom my soul loves, where you pasture your flock, where you make it lie down at noon. Is this because not only is she dark, but in that society, she had to take care of her brothers, which were above her, and she could not even tend to her own vineyards. Wow. Tell me, you whom my soul loves, where you pasture your flock, where you make it lie down at noon. For why should I be like the one who wanders beside the flocks of your companions? If you do not know, O fairest among women, follow in the tracks of the flock and pasture your kids beside the shepherd's tents. I compare you, my love, to a mare of fairest chariots. Your cheeks are comely with ornaments, your neck with strings of jewels. We will make you ornaments of gold studded with silver. Wow. Okay, that sounds like one of the old school it's not a garnish. It sounds like the suit or the straps that go over a horse to allow you to steer it. While the king was on his couch, my nard gave forth this fragrance. My beloved is to me a bag of myrrh that lies between my breasts. My beloved is to me a cluster of henna blossoms in the vineyards of En-Gedi. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves. Behold, you are beautiful, my beloved. Truly lovely. Our couch is green. The beams of our house are cedar. Our rafters are pine. And it goes on. I am the rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. As a lily among brambles, so is my love among maidens. As an apple tree among the trees of wood, so my beloved among young men. With great delight I sat in his shadow, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. Sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. Oh, that this left hand were upon my head. His left hand were upon my head, and his right hand embraced me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by gazelles or the hinds of the field, that you stir not up nor wake in love until it's pleased. The voice of my beloved, behold, he comes, leaping upon the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, there he stands behind our wall, gazing in at the windows, looking through the lattice. My beloved speaks and says to me, arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come. And the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree puts forth its figs, and the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. O my dove, in the clefts of the rocks, in the covert of the cliff, let me see your face, let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet, and your face is comely. Catches the foxes and little foxes that spoil the vineyards, for our vineyards are in blossom. My beloved is mine, and I am his. He pastures his flock among the lilies, until the day breathes and the shadows flee. Turn, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag upon the rugged mountains. That ends the second chapter of the Song of Solomon. And it makes sense that a woman actually wrote this that's a part of the harem, because if she's part of the harem, the master of the house, it seems like he would just need strict adoration, and she being cloistered in this harem, she only had one person to have her focus on. So, and it seems like these were chosen for posterity because these were probably some of the best written and tightly written poems of the time. But you can allegorically, which means that you can compare or apply this to the love of God or to Christ, to the church. And also the love of God to his people, the Jewish people. And just in general, it just tripped me out that, number one, it seems like the writer has definitely a feminine slant, and then she's also a sister, which actually is amazing too. Kudos to a dark African, possibly writer, that her writings, who would have known, number one, that she would have been a part of a harem of such esteem, but her writings are being preserved for almost, 2,000-3,000 years? How cool is that? So I freely admit that I'm an amateur podcast hobbyist. I'm glad for the opportunity to create content, but I can only improve, because of my amateur status. I started the live episode about blessings, and I'm truly blessed. Even with all the drama, I did have a great 2019. I've had 3 job changes, survived the jackass in charge, and my resolution is just not to get any fatter. I'm not going to resolve to exercise more and to lose a bunch of weight because I'll be lying. And my friend Marianne, and cutting out bacon and pork products is just not going to happen. And my friend Marianne so poignantly quipped that it's easier to change your religion than your diet. And you damn Skippy, I completely agree. But my takeaways from the live cast was, I wish I had remembered to put in my headphones because I could have captured the words on Dragon or dictated things beforehand. And then I wouldn't have had to take so much time having to dictate and create the script afterwards. They're just a whole bunch of moving parts when you're creating a live cast. And it's hard to efficiently navigate between all the different applications, etc. On cue. I want the show to be unscripted, but to keep me on task and to keep the meeting, keep the live cast to less than an hour, I'm going to need to have to be able to stick to a script. I'm going to need a turntable that I can network into my computer to be able to play my albums. And that was one of the things I did want to republish on this episode was the 3 albums that I bought. And I had Lady in Satin playing in the background, side 2, Jay-Z the Black Album, Dirt Off Your Shoulders, and Prince the original. Um, that was the last Prince album in Barnes and Noble, and it has 8 or 9 new other tracks that have never been before released. So I'm excited about listening to that a little bit later. I also wanted to make sure you guys knew the movies to watch and not to watch. Queen and Slim and Ford versus Ferrari get the 2 thumbs up. Don't go to see it because it's a waste of money. It's Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler's movie. Maybe kind of, you can go see it. Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. Just go see what you think. I think the IMAX 3D was underrated and it was not worked, and it was low expectation. I added Sold on Monday by Mcmorris to my Goodreads list of books. Summer of '69 by Hildebrand. Miss Everything by Weiner. The Guest Book by Blake, and The New Negro, The Life of Alain Locke by Stewart. And of course, I'm going to be reading from Ida, The Sword of Lions. The Sword Among Lions, excuse me. And also, I just wanted to reiterate why being a feminist pro-black African American doesn't make me a racist. And what is the difference between being pro-black and a racist? I can be gender identity happy being female, and you're not going to treat us crazy. I can be culturally proud and critical to the shortcomings of America, but that doesn't make me not a patriot. Don't get it twisted. I love everyone. I don't care where you hail from. I don't care what color you are. I don't care your sexual preference. All I care about is you don't talk me to death and you pay your own damn bills. I don't think anyone is superior to anyone else based on those attributes. And I don't think it makes me less of a patriot because I point out America's shortcomings. I think America is one of the greatest countries in the world to live in, and I'm proud to live here. But we got work to do. That's no doubt. I think we're resilient. I think we can improve. And as a taxpaying American patriot, I can tell the government to go down and sit down somewhere when they're acting stupid. That's just how I feel. And outspoken, I am, but don't call me not that I'm not a patriot or a racist, because all of that is not true. And that's all I got to say about that. So why am I reading this massive book, Ida, A Sword Among Lions? 797 pages, actually. 800 pages with all the references of truth. First, I did not know about this book until I was reading, as I stated in the live cast, about this book until a few months ago. One of the hosts of the Black Man Who Tips, Rod, was reading this. I guess to expand his mind, I don't know. But this book is written by Paula J. Giddings, published in 2008. And I actually bought this book. Did I buy this? I think I actually bought this on a Libris. Did I buy this at? I think I bought this. I may have bought this on a Libris or used on Amazon because this book is actually autographed by the author, and it also gives me an idea that I want to. I'll probably reach out to her by email to ask her some clarifying questions and just get her thoughts on the book itself. I actually am following her on Goodreads, and I wonder just how approachable she is. But in this realm of biopics, Harriet just released, and I haven't seen that yet. I thought I had saw or read as much about Harriet Tubman as I wanted to see, and I didn't think I wanted to see that on film. But this book is actually amazing because it's a very comprehensive look at one of the greats of the Black Civil Rights Movement in our country. Back in 1892, Ida B. Wells was basically wilding out. She was brilliant in her time, and in her time when women weren't even educated, and she was a teacher, and she was black at that. She was the oldest child of two slaves, ex-slaves, that allowed her to get educated. She was orphaned when she was 16, took on a teaching position so her younger siblings would not be separated out, and made her name as a media or as a journalist. And she's all but forgotten in journalism and literature and just in general. And I think this book will allow you to see just the depths of her genius in her short 68 years. I'm reading from page 163. By 1890, Ida's 1-year stint on the Free Speech had already been made it a stunningly good paper. T. Thomas Fortune observed, but the achievement had not come without effort. Since joining the paper, Wells had undertaken a grueling schedule. She was still teaching at Kortrek, taking care of her sister Lil, still writing for the Christian Index, and added to her free speech editorial responsibilities was that of being a co-proprietor of a newspaper that had its financial problems and whose progress was closely watched by other editors. Granted, this was the day before TV and social media, and this also gave me the idea of writing in a Ida B. Wells ghost into the Living Single reboot, because the Khadijah character and her struggling Flavor magazine reminds me of Ida B. Wells. And I wonder if this was Ida B. Wells the impetus or the template for that Khadijah character, but I digress. The free speech, as noted by her colleagues, appeared to miss at least one publication date, and one of the issues published a sharply worded reminder to delinquent subscribers to pay their bills. Ida also traveled a good deal that year. Newspapers announced her arrival in Chicago, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia without further comment, but Ida's complaints about there being too many too loquacious African-American league meetings where would-be leaders seemed to think that black grievances could be talked out of existence indicated that she was probably traveling on behalf of the AAL as well as her own paper. Perhaps it was her criticism of the patriarchal warriors that moved the freemen in April of 1890 to issue its most provocative gender cart to date. And it was basically dragging her because of her criticisms of the patriarchy. But the patriarchy benefited from her sharply worded criticisms. And it was such that her words also galvanized the community after the 1892, I believe, lynching of 3 innocent black men in Memphis, Tennessee. It not only led to a mass exodus of about a third of the black population of Memphis to the Oklahoma Territory, it also made her have to abandon her paper that was ransacked and then sold for parts while she basically was safe and sound in Brooklyn, New York, of all places, with the price on her head. And she writes in her own autobiography, this is in chapter 8, The Truth About Lynching. Having destroyed my paper, had a price put on my head, on my life, and been made an exile from home for hinting at the truth, I felt that I owed it to myself and to my race to tell the whole truth now that I was where I could do so freely. She would go on to continue to shed a light on the darkness that was lynching and all of the racist policies and backpedaling that was in the years following Reconstruction and the stopping of the Civil War. She was of the original Rosa Parks. She waged war against the streetcars for not giving up her seat in the female section to a white woman, and she actually won. The agitation that she and the pride that she instilled with the writing of her well-honed sword, her pen, was legendary in its day. However, her sharp criticisms of nobody was immune to her sharp criticisms. And from suffragettes to the highest leaders, Booker T. Washington, everybody suffered under her sharp tongue. And this is why she may have not, until recently, been given equal pay or equal due like the men of that age, because she was a woman daring to be critical. But if you look at her writings, she was the ultimate patriot, and she was the ultimate in calling for unity and uplifting the African American race. And I'm actually so proud and so happy that I was hipped to this book by another African American podcaster. And I'm hopeful that you will enjoy it and learn just as much as I am. And the excitement will allow you to plow through these 800 pages like they were nothing. Reading my case for a Living Single reboot with Living Single, the original series, playing in the background. So why do I have this interest in this reboot? I recently watched a series of reboots that were awful and didn't seem necessary to bring them back. The most recent reboot of the sitcom Mad About You had a significant run on TV in the 90s and made me mad that I wasted my time watching it. I was not so impressed with what happened to the middle-aged Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt characters, but I definitely would be interested and probably could relate more to the next stage in life of the Living Single cast. The Living Single debuted in 1993-94 TV season. Oh, what was I doing? I actually was in my first year of medical school. I was single. I had just graduated, and then from Mary Washington College in Virginia, drove all the way to Gainesville, Florida, and was living on my own for the first time with a roommate that didn't know how to pay her bills. But that's neither here nor there. Dating life was, so not existent. But I did have my group of friends that got me through not only medical school, but also residency. Now all of us are roughly the same age, doing different things. Some are married, some are not. Divorces. It's pretty amazing that we all made it out alive when you think about it. But Living Single itself, getting back to my case for the episode reboot. Since the 5th season was canceled right in the center of that run, and 2 of the main characters were fired, Kim Fields and T.C. Carson, there are some things that they could serve as the basis for ideas that were not fully explored during that truncated, albeit worse, 5th season of that series. The complaints of the network that the show was too urbane, you could tell the approved scripts may not have been written by the same staff or by writers too scared to take chances. You could tell that the scripts have devolved more into slapstick comedy when appropriate. The characters and actresses could play that role, but also they needed to tackle more serious themes and not being so inane. The HIV crisis during that time sticks out in my mind. I wish they had taken a serious look and explored the character Sinclair's acting career, also exploring Pregnant Max, which would have been hilarious. Regine finally marrying well, initially moving to Park Avenue, or Kyle making partner in New York and his fun becoming something of a literal black rock. The blackness of the show is what made it so successful. The original formula worked, but ultimately it was the executive who wanted crossover appeal and didn't think the sponsors would approve of that urbane show, and they wanted to word it down to latte, so to speak. I have an idea that the first episode should be a celebration, like a comeback story. The character Sinclair could have a long run with the theatrical troupe. Oh, what was it called? The Harlem Players or the Brooklyn Players or something like that. And it would be amazing to have an after party when she wins a Tony for one of those roles. The first scene opens with Sinclair with the assistant of her daughter, Overclaire. Yes, a combination of Overton and Sinclair. As they're upstairs in the expanded walk-in closet / master bedroom of the original brownstone, getting ready for her party that was being thrown in her honor at Flavor Entertainment. Then there's a 3-way call initiated by Regine, who's driving back from Georgia. A little bit of a backstory. Kim Fields was one of the housewives of Atlanta season 8 during 2016. In the 5th series, she gets written off the show after she marries that rich, I don't know what he was. And I think it would be great to kind of combine her moving down to Atlanta and then moving back. I think her real life husband was a media mogul, a producer, and why couldn't the selfish Regine marry some media mogul? they're now getting back to the scene in the bathroom. Um, they are having an animated chat about the first of many times that they shared that bathroom, getting ready for the shenanigans of the start of the day. Regine apologized for her inability to be there in time for the party, but she's looking forward to finally being back in Brooklyn. The audience will also be introduced to Regine's fabulously spoiled daughters, who seem to be an exact replica of the original Regine character, asking why the maid hadn't pressed and folded their Gucci gear before it was packed. That is another explanation. She's been away from Brooklyn for a number of years. Also, as a background, I think I put this in my other post, that Overton and Sinclair take over the original brownstone, reverts it back to a single family home, and that's where they actually raise their kids. The basement apartment that they lived in the original series is what was converted for Regine and her daughter's usage. Sinclair is excited because all of her children will be in attendance to her party. Her oldest son is a command sergeant major in the Marines. Her two sons are NFL stars, twin boys playing for the Cleveland Browns. And her mechanical engineer architect daughter, Overclaire, who pipes in, "Thank you for allowing Sinclair and Overton to name her that," takes over Overton's handyman duties, and she manages all of the apartments that they have bought and refurbished and maintained. Before they could all get off the line, Sinclair calls Khadijah, who then conferences in Max, and they're all giggling like the young women they once were, talking about the good old days in Brooklyn and how they were looking forward to this party at Flavor Entertainment. Then that's when on cue, XM Radio starts playing The Temptations, I've Got Sunshine, and they all start dancing and swaying, not as energetically as they did in that first episode of the original series, but it was just as great. And then it kind of, their scenes fade out because they're all in separate bathrooms with only Overclaire and Sinclair in the original, and then it fades out to them dancing in the original scene. And that's how that part is closed out in 1994. The after party is held in the expanded ground floor with the whole full rear glass with an amazing view of the Brooklyn Bridge and glittering Manhattan across the water. The last decade had seen an explosion of creative content with the prominence of streaming services. Flavor had been able to capitalize on all of that. Long gone were the days of struggling and maxed out credit cards to keep Flavor afloat. The original building during the tech bust was bought by Khadijah, and Overclaire used it as her thesis and remodeling it for her PhD in mechanical engineering and architecture. And the basis in her designs won her prizes that actually assisted in funding the remodeling. Everyone is arriving in black tie, and there is a red carpet set up out front, and there's all these limos and town cars showing up. You see Max and Kyle with their son, KJ, posing for the camera and answering questions. Remember, Max had been artificially inseminated by Kyle's semen inadvertently, and they never have any more children. Max is now serving her second term on the state Supreme Court. There are reports of sports reporters chatting up Overton and Sinclair's twin sons, as well as Overclaire being interviewed for her contribution to the design. And she also uh, does all of the maintenance for the studio. There also is camera taking picture of Sinclair and Overton as they arrive with their oldest son, who's in full dress Marine regalia, and he escorts her with his father down the red carpet. Khadijah with Rick, who is played by Aldous Hodge, who is a former basketball player, billionaire life partner, and they receive the guests in the entryway of Flavor Entertainment. Everyone is interacting and hugging, and Khadijah remarks on the twins and all of their yardage and how good they look in practice because they've taken some time off of training camp to see their mother get the Tony. And they're all talking about how promising the Browns are looking for the first time in 20 years. Overton raised a champagne glass and makes a speech thanking everyone in attendance and being present for this celebration of his beautiful and talented wife, Sinclair. He thanks God that his oldest son, Overton Jr., or OJ, made it back safely from his third tour in Iraq and Afghanistan. He toasts his twin sons who are playing for his beloved Cleveland Browns, promising to be the most winning in 25 years. His daughter, who is the best architect, manager, and the best handyman, of course, next to him, and whose design contributed to the major remodeling of the building that they're standing. He's grateful that they have spent 25 happy years together, and she's finally being recognized for all of the talent that he has known from the first day he's met her. He stops and smiles and looks at all of his friends in the eyes and to his wife, realizing their love could be seen not only in her face, but in all of the friends and family members in the crowd. They all raise their glasses and toast Sinclair. Khadijah raises the last toast to Sinclair. She tells funny stories, reminding everyone of her shenanigans as in her youth, as probably one of the worst assistants in publishing history, who would then go on to truly save the magazine from extinction when she and Russell moved the magazine online. The first in media business to do so. She ends with, "I am so blessed just to have her as my cousin, and she is so much more than that. She has been my sister," to Sinclair. Then there's a break and a clatter, and you hear breaking champagne glasses, and Scooter bursts through the door. He's obviously drunk, and he doesn't even necessarily just breaks through the door. He kind of busts through the crowd, staggers to the nearest waiter and takes an open bottle of champagne and takes a big swig. And he says, "Obviously my invitation has been lost in the mail." "Hey, Khadijah," he pointedly says to Khadijah, stumps his foot and says, "Baby, I'm back." Khadijah stomps over, grabs the bottle. "Looks like you have been a little bit overserved." Max states in her matter-of-fact Philly drawl, "Well, well, well, look at Scooter rising from the dead." Kyle piping in, "Ghost of relationships past," in that typical Kyle Barker drawl, affected drawl. Scooter staggers over and serves Khadijah with papers requesting controlling ownership of Flavor Entertainment, or 51% shares. He claims his work was never compensated early on in the creation and expansion of the publication. He claims copyright infringement of the multiple podcasts hosted on her platform and the YouTube shows. The digitalization of the magazine proceeds of all revenues from advertisement and its source or international success. And there's an injunction from further work until this could all be solved. Max grabs the paper confirming the claims. Khadijah, of course, becomes ballistic, asking where he's been in the lean years when she maxed out credit cards, borrowed money to keep the presses rolling. worked additional jobs while editing the magazine. She calls them out on their on again, off again relationship. It would have been tragic because I was willing to walk away from Flavor to follow you, and I almost did that last time, chasing after you, thinking we were going to be finally together. When I finally did arrive back, Flavor had not gone to press in almost 3 months. We had a skeleton crew of people with nowhere to go, and that's when Russell and Sinclair came up with Flavor.com website and published the magazine online out of necessity. But it was also the beginning of the electronic success of the magazine. Max worked with the state to secure all the copyrights, and Kyle would secure the financing for the Upteen Time. They are the reason why Flavor is where it is now, not your tired ass. A bit of backstory. Scooter was on tour again with the girl group he was managing through his label. Khadijah followed them for their U.S. arm of the tour. This is how the 5th season ended originally. However, but when she then goes back to Brooklyn when the group went overseas, she would hear unceremoniously an announcement of his engagement to one of the lead singers in the band, and they're living together in Thailand, and how he subsequently fathers 2 children with her. When her career tanked, his career tanked, and it never recovered. I'm thinking it was one of at the star of the Korean pop stars, and it was one of those girls. But Flavor, with podcasts hosted by Sinclair and Russell, and the online gaming testing YouTube channel, became one of the most successful of Flavor Entertainment, and it allowed them to get the advertising, secure further funding, and that's how Flavor went from a ragtag grassroots magazine, struggling at that, to the conglomerate that it was at the time that he tried to bust it up. Max jumps in and she says, this all seems like sour grapes and just simply as a ploy to get back at Khadijah for her success. Because you would have never tolerated her being a CEO and supporting her. And this was your penalty, or Khadijah, this was your penalty for loving him. Unceremoniously breaking up with Grant Hill and everybody else to get back with some damn Scooter. But we can all work this out in a court of law. So let's do this. Rick steps forward with Scooter getting even madder and saying something stupid like, you want this broken down ball player Mandingo wannabe. You have settled for him because you couldn't tolerate a real man like me. And Rick laughs. I know I've been here the last few years because I wanted to be. I only require Khadijah's love. I retired from the NBA at the top of my game. Now I own my own team. I get to share this with a brilliant and talented woman whose creativity will take over the world, while you were chasing jailbait across the globe, having many baby mamas. That's not success. I've been here emotionally supporting Khadijah through all the iterations of Flavor Entertainment, and I can guarantee she did it without your help. And all you deserve from her is nothing but a punch in the neck. Max says, is this what a strong woman gets? She has to pay the penalty when you decided a long time ago to terminate this relationship. It is really not fair for her to pay you now for work you never did. Not only will I see her win this and get this case thrown out, I'll land us with kicking your ass my damn self. Kyle and KJ hold her back. Sinclair steps forward and says, woo, 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 woo. That's all, folks. Nothing more to see. Here, Scooter, nice of you to visit. Now get the hell out, and point him toward the door. Scooter sways and slurs. I saw that show you were in. You weren't all that good. The Tonys scraping the bottom of the barrel, giving you that award. And there's a gasp. Overton and the twins step in. You don't gotta go home, but you can't stay here, bro. And they literally jack him up by the scruff of his neck and his pants. And you can see them all rolling his ass out the front door. The last scenes are as they all spill out of the building. A U-Haul pulling a red Jeep Wrangler with Georgia tags with Made in Brooklyn pulls up and left idling at the curve, and Regine gets out in a tizzy because she realizes she had just missed the biggest gossip-worthy spectacle of her nosy life. Her hair is blonde, braids pulled back. She has on a beautifully flowy peasant blouse, jeans, and Birkenstocks. Her daughters, both Regine replicas, are in large Dolce & Gabbana shades covering their faces, exorbitant long straight weaves, and also get out the car and looks around shocked. And Regine says, "Looks like I just returned in time for some dirt." The audience sees Overton Rick literally having Scooter by the scruff of his neck and pants tossing him in a car. And Regine says, "Scooter, good seeing you, leaving. Smooches." And then she laughs hysterically. I really never liked the Scooter character in the original series. He didn't seem to be the type of man that would truly be compatible with Khadijah's character. I wonder if this is too convoluted to work into an average 30-minute show, or could we stretch it to 45 minutes if it's actually picked up by one of like Hulu or Freeform or Netflix? Do we have to stick to the 30-minute formula? But this was a way to introduce the entire cast with additional cast members that makes sense. Although there are comedic breaks, it's not completely slapstick or inane, and appears to be more in line with the original characterizations of the series. The dialogue needs work, but that is why the writing team and the actors and actresses would have to fully be involved in the screenwriting process to reflect what they actually would say. And again, I ask, when is the production meeting? So February of this year sees me traveling to University of Florida, speaking about my book and doing a read there, and also planning for a trip for my first time going to Daytona 500 with Maria and Marianne. The February speaking engagement has nothing to do with medicine because, as I told you guys, I do not practice anymore. My job with Blue Cross Blue Shield and living within my means has allowed me not to have to do locums. And for the first time in a very long time, I'm caught up on my bills and I have money in the bank and savings. I'm good. But I'm going to University of Florida to talk about not my family, and I'm hopeful that I'll be able to get on that and finish the rewrite and republication of that just in time for my February speaking engagement at the medical school. I think being able to answer the question why the book and why now is going to be key, and I'm going to fashion it in such a way like I always answer. It started out as a challenge to myself, and now it has become something that will allow me to deal with issues that I don't think I've adequately dealt with. Discovery of self, and pursuing hobbies and dreams, because that's how you can heal. And Daytona is just because I just want to have fun, and I'm still a true fan of NASCAR, and I want to see number 48 race Jimmy Johnson before he retires. I think there are a lot of new guys that are racing extremely well, and I got to pick out someone else to lust after his retirement. So there you go. And I talk about why I created the podcast from Jump. It's coming up on a full year of me having the podcast itself. I'm hopeful by March of 2020 I will reach the all elusive 1,000 downloads. But that's going to be key. That goal is going to be key on me creating content that people are going to listen to. I originally created this podcast out of not having anything to do, and because there was nothing on TV and movies like they are now sucked. And I also wanted to shed positivity that even though I'm not a practicing doctor and I can't write you a script to get well, I wanted to be able to create something that you feel good about listening to, or you feel good about when you read my blog posts. It's encouraging and it's enlightening. And it makes you think. And that can be entertaining itself. This is how me creating this podcast, writing my book, and effecting my healing, it will encourage someone to get theirs. But sometimes if you have too much to unpack and you have your own struggles with depression or with addiction, sometimes you need more help than that. That's why you should dial 1-800-273-8255. That suicide helpline is available 24/7 because you should not suffer in silence. There's also suicidepreventionlifeline.org/chat/ that is also available 24/7. If addiction is your problem, you can dial 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357 for 24/7 help with your addiction. Talkspace and Doctor on Demand are two apps, notable apps that are available that you can meet your counselor right where you are, in your car, cubicle, at the park, for a fraction of the cost of conventional therapy. So you should check them out. This journey is hard, and it really is okay to ask for help. And I'm so glad I also split the live cast into two parts, because I have a feeling this second part may be just as long as that first. And I don't think anyone wants to listen to me talk for 2 straight hours. I'm just saying. So don't forget to navigate to www.dalesangelsinc.com for all the special offers and updates on nerd news. And drop me a line at TennesseeFroIsReading@gmail.com, or leave a non-trolly 2-minute message at 423-463-0658. Again, if it's non-trolly like I did today, I'll actually read it or play it during the podcast. And if you like what you're hearing and you're tired of freeloading and you want to become a patron through Podbean, navigate to patreon.podbean.com/thetalkingfro, or you can leave me a tip at paypal.me/FeliciaDAI. And again, Happy New Year, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I have enjoyed creating it. Have a great day.